You know that football is back when you see players getting into brawls and fighting with each other during practice, and we are not even 1 week into NFL training camp. We already have players throwing punches, players getting hurt, teams squabbling up, and coaches getting upset over the team's actions. And just 2 days into NFL training camp, we have fights going on around the NFL. And we're here to break it all down. I'm Cash, and before I continue, you should take 5 seconds to like the video and subscribe to help support the channel. We're trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We just hit 12.3. Shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. Help me reach my goals, and I'll keep putting out NFL content like this. It's a win-win situation. You get content, you help my channel grow. Let's help each other out. And with all of that out of the way, let's dive into it. Let's begin by looking at the New Orleans Saints, who in their second training camp practice of the 2025 season on Thursday had a fight break out during their practice session. The first fight of the training camp process for the New Orleans Saints, and it only took 2 days. The fight took place between veteran wide receiver Brandon Cooks, who the team signed earlier this offseason, and he basically went up against the entire Saints defense. It was a 1 versus 8. It definitely was not a fair fight. It initially looked like Brandon Cooks had gotten into it with fourth-year cornerback Alontae Taylor. His helmet flew off. They were in the middle of the scrum. It kind of looked like those were the two guys beefing together. We're not exactly too sure what started this or why it took place, but it looked like it initially started with those two guys. Based on the footage, that looks like where it appeared to have begun, with Brandon Cooks throwing the first punch and then everybody swarming in. Between the young defensive back and the veteran wide receiver, those two guys were getting into it. And here's the fight we got going on right here. There's Brandon Cooks in the number 10 white jersey. Eric McCoy, the offensive lineman, has to come in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys going on right now trying to separate this thing. I don't even know where Brandon Cooks is at anymore. And you got coaches now, referees, a lot. You got the entire freaking team, it looks like, trying to break up this fight. And eventually they did. But they got a whole lot of people in here trying to break this thing up. Let's see if we can go back to the beginning. Brandon Cooks just simply did not like something that someone said. However, though, after about an hour of breaking down footage of the scuffle from these local New Orleans Saints reporters, and breaking down just kind of the footage in general to see what happened, they came to the conclusion that it was not Alontae Taylor who Brandon Cooks was in the fight with. It was actually Brandon Cooks and Rajon Wright, the defensive back who Brandon Cooks was having a beef with. Based on some reporting from Saints local reporter Ross Jackson, Rajon Wright was matched up with Brandon Cooks the play before the initial fight broke out. Ross Jackson looked over some of the footage that many had of the scuffle, and it looks like it started with Cooks and Rajon Wright, and this is where he mentions that the two were matched up on the play before. People thought it was Alontae Taylor, but his helmet was actually already off before he got in the middle of things, trying to step in between the two and stop the scuffle and separate them. So Alontae Taylor actually was not part of the fight. He was actually trying to break it up. As to why the scuffle happened, there was possibly some trash talk between Rajon Wright and Brandon Cooks since they were covering each other, going up against each other the play before. Maybe there's some chirping back and forth, causing some emotions to flare up. The Saints offense reportedly had a pretty rough and slow day on Thursday going up against the Saints defense. So maybe Brandon Cooks was just upset and frustrated with the results that the Saints offense was having, or actually not having, due to the struggling and the fact that the Saints defense was doing a pretty good job going up against the offense. Then you throw in some trash talk on top of the lack of productivity from Brandon Cooks and the Saints offense in general. Maybe Rajon Wright said something that just got under Brandon Cooks' skin, causing the fight. Nick Underhill posted a better angle of the fight and some context as to what actually happened when it went on before the scuffle, so we got to see what actually happened between Brandon Cooks and Rajon Wright. Some context added to the situation, I may say. Here we are, there's Brandon Cooks, number 10, talking to Rajon Wright, and then he throws the punch. He went straight for it. Trash talking, I'm assuming. Throws the punch. Rajon Wright fights back. Did he throw a punch? Yeah, he got a little jab in there, and then they have to be separated. Brandon Cooks, like 2, 3, 4 guys had to pull him back. That's a lot of strength for a little dude like Brandon Cooks. and he must have been pretty upset about what Rajon Wright had to say. Luckily for the team, the fight between Brandon Cooks and Rajon Wright did diffuse pretty quickly. It was only a few seconds later that the defense and the rest of the team broke up the fight and tempers were cooled and everything was going to be okay. and they went on from there. Nobody was ejected or kicked out of practice because of the fight, which is worth noting. Sometimes that happens during these practices. And it's normal to have fights during a training camp practice. It's just going to happen, especially with people competing at the highest level. But it's when it gets taken too far, that's where it becomes a concern. Saints head coach Kellen Moore, after practice, was asked about the scuffle and how he handles situations like this. And he said he's not concerned about the camp fights. He's not concerned about what went on between Brandon Cooks and the defensive backs. Sometimes that happens. It's just something you got to keep an eye on and make sure it doesn't escalate. And I like that answer for Kellen Moore. It's going to happen. Players are going to compete. Let it be physical, but don't let it escalate to levels that you can't control.
Do you mind the dust up that we had there near the end? I mean, obviously it's expected. Like, what are your opinions?
Those things are going to come up. You're going through great work, and so obviously you want to try and eliminate them as much as you can. But sometimes it's good to get guys to rally together, and we'll be just fine.
Do you have any philosophy on that? Like, if it rises to a certain level, like, do people get kicked out of practice?
Yeah, we'll deal with all that stuff as it goes. But usually our guys are pretty good about working together and getting it addressed.
A very similar situation took place with the Dallas Cowboys, but they had not one but two fights basically take place on day 2 of training camp in these early practices. So the Cowboys are not only in a fight on the practice field, but they are in a fight with the players off the field, like Micah Parsons in contract negotiations, or their fans in a long-term fight with Jerry Jones based on his recent comments on the team, like Dak Prescott, Trayvon Diggs, and contract extensions that were done in previous years. Now, apparently things got very heated between Cowboy players during this second practice. And it wasn't just 2 players, it was multiple players. Nobody is really too sure what happened, if it was an action or words that caused this fight, but it ended up resulting in veteran safety Marquise Bell throwing a punch at his fellow defensive back Troy Pride, hitting him in the neck. Calvin Watkins says right here that at the end of the fight, Brian Schottenheimer, the Cowboys head coach, brought the players over to give him a little talking to. As we mentioned, Marquise Bell threw a punch during the fight and hit Troy Pride, his fellow defensive back, in the neck, who was on his knee for a few moments after getting hit. Everything was good, but Troy Pride then was nicked up after the fight and had to be checked out by the trainers afterwards, but he ended up being okay, which is great. I've talked to Troy Pride. He actually did an interview on the channel a few years ago. Hopefully everything is going well with him, and hopefully this isn't anything too serious, and it doesn't appear to be. Shortly after that fight broke out between the Cowboy players and Marquise Bell and Troy Pride getting punched, another fight almost broke out with offensive lineman Tyler Guyton. Calvin Watkins says that they almost had another fight, but it was quickly stopped and everything was diffused before it could get escalated. And it appears that Tyler Guyton was upset about something. I don't know if someone hit him in the back. I don't know if someone was trash talking him, but Tyler Guyton was upset about something. Cowboys star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, one of the best receivers in the league, was asked about the fights after practice, and this is what he had to say. "I get that you're angry, but we don't have no pads on. Why are we fighting? You're not even in full pads or anything like that." And not only did he say this, but he also had this to say as well. We've got to be professionals at the end of the day, contain our emotions, and really be role models for people who are watching. We can't be fighting each other when they're all teammates. So this is what CeeDee Lamb had to say about everything that was going on during this practice. Cowboys' new head coach Brian Schottenheimer also had this to say about the fights taking place after practice. "I love the way that they're practicing, but it went too far, and I had warned them before, and I made it very clear. We're not throwing punches. If you throw a punch, there's going to be a consequence, just like in a game, and you're out of practice. So if you throw a punch from now on, I'm assuming players are going to be kicked out of practice for the Dallas Cowboys." He also wasn't happy he had to pull the team together in the huddle and told them loudly that the next guy who throws a punch will be kicked off the field. That basically goes hand in hand with what he just said and what we just went over. And yet also another quote that he mentioned all the way down here. Let me see if I can find it. Schottenheimer was very upset, saying, "You can play hard, but control yourselves. Do you understand me?" With a few F-bombs in there for sure. So Brian Schottenheimer was not happy about these fights taking place in his first training camp as a head coach.
I love the intensity. There's a tempo that we discuss every day. There's going to be those events that happen during a game. If you throw a punch, you're getting kicked out of the game. And along with that, you're getting fined about $45,000. Do we have the discipline to, when those things happen, not only not throw a punch, but sometimes it's better to go and grab your own guy and pull him out of the fray so he doesn't do anything messed up. I love the way they're practicing, but it went too far.
Very interesting that we've had 2 fights break out under 2 first-time head coach, and both of them are handling it very differently. For the Cowboys, Cowboys, their head coach is taking it as if you throw a punch, you're getting kicked out. And as for Kellen Moore and the Saints, he's taking it as it's normal as long as it's under control and everything is going okay, then no one's going to be kicked out of practice. So we've had a few fights during the early portions of these NFL training camp practices, and the pads have not even come on yet. Luckily, nobody was seriously hurt. Troy Pride was nicked up a little bit, but from the sounds of it, he is going to be okay. And as for the Saints fight, it didn't escalate to the levels that were too physical, luckily, and no one else was hurt, and nobody was hurt in that one. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to help support the channel and help us grow to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Let me know what you make of these fights down in the comments below. Are they good? Are they bad? Is it meant to happen? Or who's handling it right, actually? Kellen Moore, Schottenheimer? What should their approach be? Let me know down in the comments below. I appreciate you. I'm Cash, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.